It's good. That's good. As usual, if there are no questions. Thank you.
Скажите, пожалуйста,
Could you tell us
what the experiment, scientific experiment, will you manage at first you go on ISS board?
So there's a lot of experiments going on ISS, of course, hundreds at a time, thousands of experiments since the beginning of station. A lot of the experiments that the Canadian Space Agency is sponsoring are medical, and as a medical doctor, it will be very interesting for me to do these experiments on my own body, on the effect of life on orbit, and also interesting experiments, technology demonstrations on how to do remote medicine, how to help sick people when you're far away from help. It applies to astronauts on orbit, telemedicine, but also it applies on Earth. For example, if people live in a very remote community, then there are ways called telemedicine to help them from the big university centers in the capital. And the technologies to do telemedicine on Earth in a small village are the same that we use in space to help astronauts from the Earth. So it'd be very interesting to contribute to the development of telemedicine.
What about astrophysics experiment?
So of course, station is in space, so it's a good place to do astrophysics. There's an amazing experiment going on right now at the AMS particle physics detector. The crew doesn't have a lot of interaction with astrophysics experiments on board, but I will be interested in knowing how.
So all of the space agencies around the world had to make adjustments after the aborted launch in October. From the NASA's perspective, our biggest impact was having a reduced crew number on the space station, and you know, the space station always takes a certain number of hours to maintain, and so unfortunately science, when you reduce crew number, science takes the biggest hit. As far as the impact on our commercial crew providers, Boeing and SpaceX, there's no impact to those timelines. Those timelines are determined by the development of their vehicles and the testing of their vehicles, and it's not driven by the performance of the students. Instead, we're more of a partnership where if the commercial crew vehicles are pushed out, for example, then you know, we can always work with the Russians.
I think they might possibly go downstairs. Yes, I'm going to be fine without a hat there.
And look at us. You will see the hat for Ingress. And follow up.
Вопросов нет. Спасибо всем.
No questions? Thank you, everyone.
Мы с вами встречаемся теперь на парадной комиссии.
So we're going to meet you during the commission session. If there are any questions, then...
С планшетами мы тоже договорились. Мы вам сейчас это вернем.
So we have also agreed with...
Будет время с ними поработать.
So we'll work on that if there's time. We're very glad to welcome you to our museum. Please proceed.
Хорошо.
Look at me. And look at me. And
I'm at the very top.
еще раз.
One more time.
Сергей Михайлович тренер тоже обычно. Всем.
Если кто-нибудь трогает меня в брови.
Well, Sergey, you ready?
Если хотим вам принести наш официальный пост. Вот такой.
This is our official poster.
То есть мы предполагаем, что в конечном итоге наш Союз долетит до Марса.
This is our official poster. We're thinking our Soyuz will make it to Mars. Attention. It's the first time I see a selfie with the crew.
Right through the window.
Нет, это говорит.
Yes, we can take a picture like that.
Лицо.
Но в письме своей Нины Ивановне
But in his
два письма.
letter
Ниночка, дружочек, пришли мне,
to Nina Ivanovna of Baikonur, he asked for some dry wine. He wrote 102 letters to Nina. He said that it was so hot here. They put a little bit of dry wine and some mineral water, and it helped quench thirst. There were no air conditioning. You can see the photograph of Sergei Korolev, please.
И еще раз.
One more time. Dear gentlemen, do not stand in the way.
Димон, молодец.
видно, что тебе. Тут фонарь и вот окончание.
Да-да, идем.
Kirk Shireman, International Space Station Program Manager here in Baikonur. Kirk, just 7 weeks have passed since the Soyuz launch abort. Much work has been done. The stakes are high. What are your thoughts as you look at the new vehicle behind you?
Well, first of all, I'm just truly amazed at the speed at which the Russians were able to understand the problem and take mitigating steps so that it won't reoccur, and to actually, on top of that, accelerate this launch from December 20th to here December 3rd. So a phenomenal amount of work. We all feel very, very comfortable with the quality of this rocket, and really, really looking forward to having this crew up on orbit.
Now, because of what happened 7 weeks ago, the program itself has been involved in just an unbelievable amount of work, keeping options open for all of the various activities yet to come. Give us sort of an overview about that work internally with the partnership to get ready for the work ahead.
Sure. So we try to keep in mind our #1 goal is to continue the research and the utilization on board the International Space Station. So how do we maximize that? And then we had all these various options about when this vehicle would fly, when the subsequent vehicles would fly, when our cargo vehicles would fly. So we were trying to go through and look at all the various options, always keeping in mind #1, keeping the crew safe, keeping the vehicle safe, and fully utilizing the space station. So we have a great plan. It's through the end of this year. We're going to fly this guy on December 3rd. We hope to fly a Dragon, a SpaceX Dragon out of Florida on December 4th. We have the Cygnus already on orbit. We had a recent Progress on orbit, and we'll be back in business full speed ahead. So a really great time in the International Space Station program.
And what does that all say about the resiliency of the partnership to work together to maintain this very active flight rate in spite of everything that's happened?
You know, events like we had on October 11th really draw us together as a partnership. So everyone was, what can we do? How can we help recover from this situation? And so Russians, the United States, Canada, JAXA, ESA all work together. So, you know, we have an ESA astronaut on board. We have U.S. astronauts, Russian astronauts. We have a Canadian astronaut going over here. JAXA's been part of this. So really has been a source to strengthen the partnership. Very, very good cooperation and flexibility on all parts. You know, JAXA actually made some modifications on how we get rid of the HTV. So all these things work together to create the successful program that we have. We just celebrated 20 years, and I think it's this cooperation that's made it the success that it is.
Steve Jerzik, NASA Associate Administrator here in Baikonur. Steve, your first trip actually to Baikonur. Very critical launch. A lot of work's been done over the past 7 weeks since the launch abort. Your thoughts from an agency perspective as to how the Russians and the partnership have recovered to get to this point?
Yeah, I've been really impressed with how the Russians have worked with our team on recovering from the launch anomaly. Russians have been very open with us, provided us data, and kept us in the loop on the commission that they've run. We really feel like between the investigation commission that the Russians have done, and they've got to root cause, and they've developed corrective actions, and then we've done independent analysis to confirm their findings, and we're really confident that we know what happened, and we've corrected it, and we're ready to go.
How critical in the overall scheme of things is this launch, getting the station back at least for a few weeks, to a 6-person crew, and then all of the other activities that lie ahead.
Where we moved this launch up a couple of weeks from the 20th, December 20th to December 3rd, and we moved the landing of the current crew, expedition crew, from earlier in December back to December 20th. So that'll give us a real nice overlap between the crew going up and the crew coming back, and get back to more regular operations and regular rhythm on ISS.
And assuming a safe and successful launch, the springboard to the first commercial crew activities early in 2019, your thoughts about how that's all coming together?
Yeah, no, we're coming down to what I'll call crunch time for the first flight demonstrations for SpaceX, which is currently scheduled for January 7th. But we have a lot of set of activities in December leading up to that launch. And then Boeing later in the spring will have their first uncrewed flight test. And then we'll see how those go, and we'll set the dates for the first crewed tests, getting back to launching Americans from U.S. soil again. Very exciting.
Bill Gerstenmaier, NASA Associate Administrator for Human Exploration Operations. Bill, hard to believe it's only been 7 weeks since the launch abort that set everybody on a different pace of activity for recovery. You've been an integral part of this with the Russian side. Your thoughts about the intense activities that have taken place over the short period of time to get us to where we are today?
You know, again, I think there's been a lot of work to get ready for the launch today, and I think a lot of specialists, a lot of folks around the world have really spent some quality time looking at what occurred, understanding what happened, trying to learn from what happened to make sure that when we go back and we're ready to go launch again, we're really ready to go launch. And it's been a good team effort working around the world and folks understanding data. I think we were very fortunate that we were able to get the hardware back and understand where the failures occurred and what happened on the vehicle. So it worked out very well, but it's due to a lot of hard work on the Russian side and a lot of work by the Russian Commission. Also, the NASA independent team got a chance to look at this same problem and draw a similar conclusion. So I think it was a good all-around effort and really showed that we're ready to go fly.
I think the casual observer would take a look at a launch anomaly like occurred on October 11th, and yet the Russians have launched 4 Soyuz style boosters, including one that's identical to this, in just 7 weeks. Fairly remarkable.
Yeah, again, I think the difference is with a mature system like Soyuz, where it's launched and has a large history, there's not a question about the basic design. The basic design is pretty solid. Is there something that changed in the processing, something that changed in the hardware that allowed the anomaly to occur? So then it limits the amount of areas you got to search. With a vehicle that doesn't have the flight history of Soyuz, it's a lot harder to find the problems, to figure out what needs to be fixed and what needs to be worked on.
Now, for the here and now, 17 precious days of a 6-person crew on orbit before you go back down to 3 for a while. How critical is this launch to reset the rhythm, if you will, for space station operations?
Yeah, I think it's really critical these 17 days for the new crew to get on orbit. There's 2 rookies with the crew. There's 1 experienced crew member. But for the crew on board station to actually get a chance to teach them the ropes, to show them all the secrets of space station, show them how to operate every day, that's going to be really important. They've got the EVA in the middle. We've got potentially a Dragon cargo vehicle coming up to station. So it's going to be a busy time. You know, I kind of talked to the teams at the flight readiness review, and I asked them to make sure that they, allowed time for the crews to just have some kind of quiet time together where they can hand off from one another to get really ready to have a good handover to the next crew, because this crew's going to be there for a period of time with just 3 crew taking care of this big station. They want to get all the information they can out of this experienced crew that's been up there, learn all the tricks of operating station, get into rhythm quickly and move. And so these 17 days and handover will be very intense leading up to the landing on the 20th of December.
And then waiting in the wings early in 2019, commercial crew. How's all that coming together?
Again, for us on the ground, a really busy time. We're in the process of working really hard with commercial crew, going through all the analysis, all the certification testing, all the qualification testing, making sure that those systems are really ready to go fly. So this period from now through Christmas through the first of the year is very intense for the teams in Houston. We have almost solid reviews every day in Houston, going over the the design data, going over the test data, making sure that things are really ready to go fly for the uncrewed flight sometime maybe in January, February next year. So very intense time. You know, also on the other side, Orion is busily being integrated with the service module down in Florida. So that's an extremely busy time down at Kennedy Space Center. I think they mated the crew module adapter to the Orion to the service module, and then it'll get mounted to the Orion capsule later next year. The structural test article, the large hydrogen tank, is completing fabrication in New Orleans. It should ship on the 21st of December to the Marshall Space Flight Center. So when you step back and you look at what's going on in human spaceflight, I can't ever imagine a time when there's been this much hardware, you know, coming to life in this program and moving forward. So this is a great time for engineers at NASA. This is a chance where you're going to get a once in a lifetime, maybe once in a career time to actually look at hardware, look at test data, and get ready to go fly. So what we see behind us is an amazing system, an amazing heritage that sits here that allows us to fly. But then I look to those new systems coming online, and someday maybe they'll have that same kind of history that we see with this wonderful rocket behind us.
Amerykanka, Rosjan i Kanadyjczyk, którzy w tym momencie przechodzą kwarantannę. Rakieta Soyuz, którą mają...